So I've been thinking more about this topic. What is philosophy? I think it's a good discussion for YouTube because it's really the question um, of the form of philosophy in general. The question about whether or not philosophy might have a general form. And I'll explain what that means, what I mean by general form as we go on. I just want to say at the outset that I think philosophy is a very important form of discussion for YouTube to be partaking in. Because when I first started posting videos on YouTube, what excited me about it was its potential for um, re-enlivening the participatory democracy that I once believed America was. I now believe it could be that, but that it isn't currently. America currently is a corporatocracy. Um, and we don't value philosophy in our society, in our American society. Instead, we value, well, other things. Our schools are um, our public schools are forced to teach math and science and to teach capitalism, and philosophy generally is ignored. Even at the university level, philosophy is underfunded and um, dismissed by most politicians and um, physicists and other scientists. There are exceptions, of course. Philosophy has had and always has had and always will have major influences over society, but there are certainly lulls in um, the public at large's ability to pay attention to what philosophers are saying. And I think we're in such a lull. Largely, it's a result of this the form of social organization called industrial capitalism. I'm not a Marxist or anything, though I would say it's damn near as important to have read and understood Marx as it is to have read and understood, or at least been told what Adam Smith uh, wrote about, because there are a lot of ways in which Adam Smith's conception of human nature and of nature are askew of the facts, and that in fact, the reason most academics have Marxist or at least socialist leanings um, is because Marx's scientific analysis and an analysis of science is in fact more factual than Adam Smith's in terms of both anthropology and physics and of psychology. Um, there's plenty of work on the way that Adam Smith misinterpreted or, in fact, just made up his own anthropological data, assuming that there was a barter economy, for example, on the North American continent among the Native Americans, when in fact, there was nothing of the sort here. Um, a good place to read about this is in the anthropologist David Graeber's recent book, Debt, The First 5,000 Years. He sort of shows how off the wall some of the claims that Adam Smith was making were, at times in a very hilarious way. So you should check out David Graeber's book if you don't have time to read Marx. Um, David Graeber's not a communist. He's read Marx, of course, but he's more of an anarchist. Um, and I think anarchy is very significant because philosophy's role in the public sphere, I think, has something to do with um, the individual and assuring that the individual can come to birth. In other words, that we have a culture that enables self-actualization and thinking for oneself. A society that educates its populace to be free, to realize, um, for each individual to realize their own freedom. Philosophy allows us to do that. Philosophy is a path towards individuation. And in a democracy, um, one must assume that there are free citizens enacting enacting that democracy. But we can't just assume that those individuals are ready-made and given. Freedom is something that human beings learn to enact. Um, and it's not just something that can be taught to children from the outside. Our pedagogy has to also consider the nature of the human soul, which is such that it learns by remembering what it already knew, rather than mm, taking in information from the outside onto a blank slate, or empty um, memory on a computer circuit, silicon chip. The human soul learns by remembering, which is how Plato described it. The Greek is anamnesis. We remember the eternal ideas as we come to know the universe around us, and we're not only discovering uh, the nature of nature when we do science and when we do physics. We're also participating in the creation of the forms which are structuring that universe, that natural world. So we see it from both ends at once, as the thing created and as the one creating. Philosophy, keeps society together by holding science and religion um, together. Without philosophy, there is no form of thinking in general that can maintain the wholeness of a civilization, that can keep together its various forms of specialized thought. And the idea of a form of philosophy in general is an especially important one, because in our postmodern era, especially in the philosophical context, um, the very notion of philosophy has been called into question, as if philosophy may have ended, in fact, and that writers like Heidegger and Derrida, or even